Do you think that there's a crisis in mental health in the third level sector, and how, if there's no intervention at this stage, or if there's no proper, we have an opportunity here in the future of funding for higher education. We either take it or we ignore the problems that you have been, the issues that you've been presenting us here with today. Is there a crisis in it, and can that crisis deepen if nothing is done about it? I also want to ask you in terms of this just for Jigsaw, how much progress has been made in the implementing the existing policies, such as the National Student Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Framework, and what are the greatest barriers to that implementation? In your submission, you referred to fragmented and inconsistent approach. Are we seeing disparities between different institutions there? And just finally, I want to ask in terms of the inflation and the cost of living and the pressures that are on families and are on students. It looks like that inflation and rising inflation is here to stay. How big a factor is that going forward, say for the next 12 to 18 months, in terms of the financial pressures that are on students? I know we did a survey ourselves last year, so we're all surveyed out, and 9 out of 10 students said that they were suffering from financial stress, either extreme stress or stress because of financial circumstances, whether that be in terms of SUSI or accommodation or the other costs of third level education. So just those. Maybe.
Do you want to address that to a particular witness?
Well, to Joseph maybe, in terms of...
Which Joseph?
Joseph Duffy, sorry.
Okay, I'll take some of that first. I'm sure some colleagues will come in. You asked first about the question about is there a crisis?
Yeah.
I would say absolutely there's a crisis in terms of demand, there's a crisis in terms of trying to meet the staffing needs, but I also think that there's a crisis in terms of vision. And how are we really looking at this, and how do we understand this, and not understanding something and not thinking about it as something that's just standalone. You asked in terms of the policies. I mean, I don't think I'm best placed to say that particularly, because it's around, you know, looking to the policies are there, how are they implemented, and it's looking to see how they're going to be implemented and tracked and supported over time. But I think one of the things that our colleagues and Trish was saying earlier on, I think everybody working in the mental health system, I think without a doubt, is really, really well intentioned. They're trained to work on a systems level. And what's happening is that they're in many, many ways being forced, as Mark was saying, to work on very much the individual level. And it's only, I suppose, there's a real need to think about how we can use the actual really valuable resources that are there. Because what tends to happen, you'll know this yourself, we all know this, is that we might get invited to participate in the development of a particular policy. And that's a fantastic opportunity, and people love it, and they're really full of energy. And then it's left to be implemented. But the day job has to be done. And it's really important about how do we free time to actually believe that we need to build this system, that we need to put the resources and the time into it, while also the tide is coming in and there's so many needs and so many resources and so many young people needing support. And that's why I suppose it's thinking about my point earlier on, and not just deciding we're going to fund particular counselling hours. How are we going to free up some expertise? And that's something we struggle with in our organisation. If you want to do a new initiative, you need to take somebody who's experienced, but also you need to think about the benefits of what they're going to bring to the service. So it's about having staff with a range of experience, and that's the benefits of assistance, of having people coming from multiple different professions to us. Thank you.
Are there disparities between institutions in terms of approach?
I suppose we're just in Jigsaw, we're beginning to work within the area, so I wouldn't feel confident in terms of commenting on that overall. Some of the colleagues would be better able to comment on it. I think what's really important is that moving beyond, and campuses are moving to a whole of campus view. So thinking about it's everybody's responsibility. It's not just within the counselling service. And often what happens, particularly in mental health, people get very scared and think, well, actually, I'll refer you to here. I can't do anything myself. And really, it's trying to give that message that everybody has a role and everybody can do something. They don't have to do everything, but it's not just the responsibility of just the counselling service.
And just the combination between the cost of living crisis and then the mental health crisis at the same time, the collision of those two, how might that?
I think it's going to put enormous pressure on, in terms of young people themselves, those who are studying, in terms of trying to earn a living and keep their heads above water in terms of if they have to travel to college. But we know, particularly in terms of the first My World survey, anxiety about money and funds was a huge issue for young people. But also in terms of determining their career choice and what's going to be a solid profession for them. That idea of a solid profession and a career for life is gone with it.
Just maybe if anybody else wanted to comment on that, on the cost of living.
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up on what Joseph was saying there, I think one of the important things to remember is that the best outcomes come from a good therapeutic relationship. And what springs to mind for me is some years ago I was involved in a school where there was serious challenges and a lot of I suppose expertise was brought in, but the young people wouldn't engage with it because they didn't have the therapeutic relationship or the trust. So what Joseph is talking about there is very important, that it's everybody's responsibility, you know, not just the counsellor, but anybody who engages with young people, or any person for that matter, that they feel that they are equipped to help them. So I suppose it's, you know, there are programs like mental health first aid, and I think that they should be, I suppose, maybe CPD requirements that everybody should look at.
Thanks, Michael.